90.
90. She said something different.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Said individual digits. It's a lot.
Yeah, didn't think we would be here.
No?
No, I don't know why.
You had some sort of end date in mind? Or?
No, I didn't have an end date. I just didn't think we would be at 90. I have no idea what I thought. Now we're here. We're just like, I don't even know if 91 will ever come.
Find out. Stay tuned. Like and subscribe. That's how you can ring the bell.
So I think we'll be continuing our conversations from last couple of iterations.
Yeah.
They kind of grow on themselves.
Yeah.
Just like the rest of the podcast, I think it grows on itself.
Yeah. And plus it's been like an emotional time in the household. The kids are one's graduating high school, one's graduating 5th grade, so out of elementary school. And I don't know, it's weird because it's like, when they're born and when they're little, it's like, you they're going to grow up and you want them to grow up and be successful and, happy and all these things. But then, it starts to happen. And, what, 5th grade to 6th grade? It's like, how is that even a thing? But it's like, it's weird. It's a lot more emotional than I thought it would be. It's a lot more emotional than, our first one was when he was going from 5th to 6th somehow.
When he was going from 5th to 6th, or even from middle school to high school, for some reason, I guess whatever the emotional state of being I was in at that point, and maybe it was just numbness, I don't know. I processed everything more emotionally, like on the visceral level. Like everything was just like, oh my gosh, I'm crying or I'm emotional because like, oh, it's bittersweet that this is ending. And it's kind of like, there were all of these like normal, like what I would consider normal emotions. Like, oh, it's sad that he's leaving and blah, 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 blah. Also, it could be that we're just as older, we get more nostalgic about things too. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's that this is our last one. When Aiden did it, well, we've got another one that's still got, time ahead of her. And now that's it. Maybe. I just thought of that. So I don't know if that's it or not.
I mean, maybe it is for you. But I guess what I wanted to say is that the processing of emotional frequency for me right now is so different that I'm just even confused of what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And it's not, and so I have been guided to read 2 different books, which one of them is, you can put the link in the description, as the Tom Canyon's Hathor's Speak, maybe that's the name of the book. But he's like one of the most incredible sound healers, that I'm aware of.
Yeah, he had a special on Gaia.
Yeah, I just think he's incredible, period. And he just naturally has, like song coming out of him. I mean, one, he basically almost became a professional country singer. But anyway, that's kind of like a side point. But it's that book, so his book. And then as I started reading that book and I started to read the Hathor's channel portion of it. So like first a little bit of it is him talking about himself, and then it goes into the channel portion. And when I started reading the channel portion, they talked about a way to find self, or a way to ascend, or way to reach enlightenment, or just become more aware, is through the densification of, well, actually, they didn't even say densification. That is the term that I'm using. So just scrap that and put that to the side. What they said is through increased flow of Ka, which is basically prana, right? And Hathors relate themselves to the Egyptian teachings because back then they came to Egypt. And so it's flow of Ka, or basically flow of prana or chi, or whatever you want to call it, depending on, whatever chronology you're in, as Guru Jagat says. And so through the increasing of the prana, then they said that, that Taoist teachings in regards to this is very applicable. Like, so they kind of said, so if you wanted to explore increasing of your prana through sexual vitality, basically, or not losing your prana through sexual vitality, and then food, basically eating live food, then they suggested exploding Taoism, and tantric practices are part of that Taoism. So I started, what is it called? Tantra by Osho? Osho? Whatever. I don't know anything about Osho. But anyway, so I'm reading this simultaneously, and here's what it comes down to. And this is, I guess, what I want the topic to be. As we explore ourselves feeling overwhelmed of our children leaving our house. The goal is to experience your emotion, right? But not be lost to it.
Yeah.
And every single time in the past, like when Aiden was graduating and I felt emotional and there was a sadness and bittersweetness and at the same time proudness and all of those things, I think I was actually experiencing the emotions, period, and identified myself as those emotions.
That's the key is when you say identified yourself as the emotions.
Yeah, that is what the Tantra book, Tantra teachings speak of. It's just you lose yourself in the identity. And authors kind of go hand in hand. So, oh my gosh, if anybody needs a recommendation for 2 books to read simultaneously, I would highly recommend these 2 because they go hand in hand, energetic frequency, balancing between ethereal realm and then whatever Osho, is that what his name is? Whatever Osho talks about from the tantric teachings from Taoist, just this understanding of ethereal interpretation, and then like how an extraterrestrial or other dimensional race would provide you an offering, and then earthly take on it, I guess, that is very etheric.
The anybody who's done any meditation, especially if you've read something or had a teacher or something, like the first thing they say is that you are not your thoughts. People think that they're their thoughts, but you are not. And when you're meditating,
but it's impossible to know what that means.
Yeah, when it is impossible to know what that means.
I've heard that bajillion of times.
But it's only when you're in meditation that you're like, I'll find myself going down some thought rabbit hole. I'm like, wait a minute. I am like so connected to whatever this thought is, whether it doesn't even matter what it is. Any thought, I become it. And I'm like, no. And you can just let it go, and the analogy is like, it's like a cloud that comes and goes, or you're in a river and it's like a leaf that comes and it goes, and you can acknowledge it and you can just let it go. And that's separating yourself from your thoughts or separating yourself from the emotions. You have thoughts and you have emotions and you experience thoughts and you experience emotions, but you are not your thoughts and emotions.
Yeah, identity. Like ego.
Identity level.
Yeah, ego level identity, but that I am
But
this.
I don't think that is a common mode of operation certainly not the Western world. I think very few people have realized that they are not their thoughts and emotions. I say that having lived 40 some odd years, totally identifying with them and not even realizing it, because it wasn't obvious to me. I imagine it's not obvious to most people that you're not, because it is so visceral of an experience that it's like, it almost seems like, how else could it be? At least it can be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, like my thought on the book goes to friendship between feelings and emotion too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the conundrum that I face in my ability to experienced this, is that it is important to allow the emotion to flow, right? When you say you're not your emotions, thus you're not identity, like the important part there is you still need to have the emotions. You still need to have the experience of the emotion.
Yeah.
But as an observer of it, but a complete diver into its experience.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting this from the mixture of the two books together, which is really strange because I'm like taking the two books and I'm merging them in because I'm reading them back and forth in any one sitting. And so it's strange. But you are not your emotions, but at the same time, you need to be able to have your emotional understanding flowing and be present with the emotional maturity, right? And so, like, I'm kind of scraping the surface of both of the teachings here.
I mean, if you don't actually feel your emotions and experience your emotions, they get all stuck. They get hemmed up inside of you. And it's not that, we don't want to feel our positive emotions. Those are easy to feel. Everybody wants to do that. But it's the negative, the fear and the sadness and the grief and the whatever that we want to just bury down and not feel. But it stays buried down. And if we don't feel it and express it when it's happening in the moment, or at least very, very soon thereafter, it just gets stuck there and festers like a rotting something.
No, it's everything we have talked about before.
Yeah.
It basically goes back to it stops the flow of prana. Right? Like all the previous podcasts I have said that. It's just now I'm reading the book that also says that, right? But it basically, the book is kind of the reminder. The goal of self is to know self without dams or barriers, right? Remember the episode we talked about how I saw the energy not flowing and then all these dams and barriers. It's basically that is you allow self to be as is in full acceptance of what you are. And thus you know self because you're not stopping the flow of your anything, good, bad, indifferent. And then, in Taoism, they talk about the judgment of the good and the bad, right? As opposed to the isness, right? Yeah, like, I don't know, that's what, right? Like the Taoists talk about the yin and yang, right? And, right,
The duality.
the dual, well, I don't even like that word, but it is a combination of everything within itself. It's everything that is oneness, that is experienced within the oneness of the circle, right? Like when we did Tai Chi and we did all the movement that created the yin and yang.
The balance of opposites.
Well, yeah, but this is not that. This is the scene of the wholeness with all parts of it. And you're right, one cannot exist without the other, and one is within the other. But at the same time, you're seeing the whole thing as one, right? That is most of the problems I used to have with yin and yang is that most of the people get lost in the duality or the split there in two, they're trying to balance themselves between the light and the dark, knowing that they both are creating one or whatnot. But the entire thing is just one, right? And so that full acceptance of self, meaning the entire emotional scale of fear and sadness and grief, and I'm trying to think of all the bad ones that we don't want to feel.
Right.
Acceptance of self as that, not your identity as that, but acceptance of you as someone who's able to propagate that entire breath
Right.
of you.
Sure. I mean, it's
not identity of you, but the breath of you.
Right. I mean, the Jungian shadow may even start making it identity style, because it's like here's the me that feels this, and here's the me that doesn't feel this. So it's almost a more integrated version of that.
Yeah, now of course I have a whole bunch of problems with Jungian shadow situation. I still don't know why. But yeah, but the idea is that you are everything, quite literally everything. And everything has sadness, and everything has fear, and everything has grief. And right, most of us think, in fact, I think I would say that I would have in the past said, oh, the second I admit that I am able to feel fear or that I am fear, I would actually say no and I would push it away because I thought that bringing it into my I amness would somehow bring it more of it. And therefore I was afraid of it.
If you manifested it?
If I accept this as me, then therefore I manifest more of it.
Yeah.
As opposed to recognizing it, there is no judgment in me when I feel fear. And there's no judgment in me when I feel grief, or there's no judgment in me this morning when I was crying because I was dropping Annabelle off for the last time in elementary school. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just the thought that you are allowing yourself to feel what you're actually feeling and not putting any judgment on it and just allowing the prana of that emotion to completely be your truth without seeking identity, or in fact, without seeking unidentity. And that's what it is. Like, we don't realize that when there are certain things, when I'm afraid of feeling fear, I'm seeking unidentity.
Explain that.
This is the same thing that I said just a couple of seconds ago, just basically kind of like clarifying what that does. If we are feeling fear, but we don't want to be afraid, and we're trying to be brave to push through the fear and to make the fear go away because we're going to be brave, that pushes away the fear because we think that we're actually afraid, but we don't want to be afraid. And because we have tied in this resistance to being identified as someone who's afraid, right? Like, to me, I think that's what I did. I built this generalized resistance to, I'm not someone who's afraid. That does not make me afraid. That just makes me shut off a portion of myself that is afraid.
Yeah.
But by default, then that actually makes me afraid. By shutting off a portion of myself that is afraid and not acknowledging that I feel afraid actually makes me more afraid and makes me identify with that more so than ever before because I'm denying myself the feeling.
Yeah. I mean, there's in so many movies and books, there's the hero or the warrior or whatever. And, someone's like, oh, you have no fear. And they're like, no, I have fear, but I go and I do it anyway. And it's like, if you had no fear, it would, I guess, be easy to do things that would be scary to most people. But fear is there for a reason. I mean, even at an evolutionary primal level, fear is there to stop you from doing things that would probably hurt you in general. You probably should have a healthy fear of, and I say healthy fear there of things like, fire or, floods or whatever. Fear's you should be careful. I'm trying to think if I should take all this back real fast. There are things that you should definitely be careful about because they can cause damage to you or whatever. And just being like fearless, I'm going to go, jump off this bridge because I have no fear. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Fear is there for a reason. And just like you, for the first 40 years of my life, I would just try to just suppress and cut off any negative feelings, anger, fear, you name it. I would just pretend that I don't feel them.
Because it is overwhelming to feel them.
It is overwhelming.
And it feels out of control when you actually allow them to flow.
Yes.
Especially if you don't acknowledge that you feel that way and then be able to sit there in that overwhelm.
Right.
But as children, again, going back to the fact we have designed this system as children because as children we're not able to calm and soothe.
Right. But so I've got 40 years of that gunked up inside of me. And then for a period of time after that, I went all love and light. And it's like, oh, I'm not going to experience fear. I'm not going to experience anger because that's not on the good spectrum or whatever. And so I'll just, again, it's the same thing. It's just like a slightly different way to look at it. I'm just going to pretend that I don't have that, as opposed to like deliberately burying it. So in the end, it ends up being about the same thing, but you get to feel slightly better about it because love and light or whatever.
Well, I mean,
And there is this fear of, well, if I acknowledge that I'm afraid of the house burning down or whatever, then there's a chance I'm going to manifest a house burning down into my world. So I'm not even going to think about it. I'm not even going to acknowledge it. Love and light.
Yeah, but I think for me, I can see that not acknowledging it is my only form of making myself better about it, in the sense to believe that I have control over it.
No, it totally is a control thing, because it feels like I could open up the if nothing else, open up the floodgates of manifestation above and beyond just the I don't want to feel it. And so here's the control. I can control how I feel. I can control the universe. So love and light. Everything's fine. Everything's great.
But love and light is, you are on the right path towards the idea that there is love and light within you. But to reach the love and light within you, you have to go through this very uncoupled portion of yourself, or you're hiding everything that you're afraid of from your own being.
Right.
And so the second love and light touches that, it is, we have trained ourselves not to go there. It's a no square, right?
It's, I think so many people end up going through that phase that's almost,
it's completely normal. I'm just talking about how it looks on the other end of it.
Yeah. But now it's like, it's okay to, it's not just okay. It's right and good that, I'm a human and I have this emotional range, and sometimes I feel these good things and sometimes I feel these bad things, and they're all okay. I am not them, but I experience them and I feel them. And, they make me happy, they make me sad, they make me angry, whatever it happens to be. But the whole breadth of that human emotion, the richness of it becomes the thing in itself. It's like there's value in just the richness of the entire human emotional spectrum that I could have never appreciated. It's like, do I enjoy being angry or sad or whatever? No, I don't enjoy it. But at the same time, I can appreciate it in a way that is,
because you're no longer identifying and running away from it.
Right. Because it's no longer I am sad, I am angry. It's I feel sad or I feel angry. And we think that that's what we mean when we say I am sad. But, like English has this one to be. I think in Spanish there's the form of to be for like a characteristic and for a state. And a characteristic is, this is big. But a state would be like, I'm sad. I'm sad now and temporarily. So that may actually work better in Spanish. But I am sad in English, it almost defines you in this way that we English speakers don't. The thing that I am human and I am sad, you have defined yourself. You have described it feels like a characteristic instead of a state. Whereas I feel this, it's more obvious that is a temporary thing.
Yeah. Right, but temporary, not in an escapism way.
No, and
just not an identity.
The fact that it's temporary doesn't matter. It's a state as opposed to a condition, as opposed to a condition or characteristic.
Identity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Identity. But it's not. Growing up in Ukraine, it's not that I think I identified myself as sad or afraid, right? I think identification therefore brings in an extreme overwhelm, right? Like of how much you take it on, right? But it's the overwhelm of it that I was running away from more so than, um, I guess this overwhelm happened because
Overwhelm might be its own emotion or feeling.
no, like overwhelm in fear,
Oh,
overwhelm in sadness, overwhelm in grief. Do you see what I mean? It's the feeling of drowning in fear, or the feeling of drowning in grief or sadness or hopelessness. It's the overwhelm of that emotion that I was trying to mitigate or control. Do you see what I mean? Now, is overwhelm its own thing? Yeah, but I think, like, to me, overwhelm at this point, I'm noticing has a whole bunch of other things in it. Like, oh, I'm overwhelmed because I feel fear and sadness and grief and joy, let's say. Do you know what I'm like? If when Annabelle was graduating yesterday, I felt fear because I'm like, holy shit, you know. And then mom and dad were late, so I was afraid for that. And then Aiden was late, so I was afraid for that. And there's just sadness, so there's that. And then there's like joy of looking forward to something new for her. There's that, right? And think about it. All of those are very specific, individualized sets of emotions.
right. And
I'm gonna make you cry.
they're almost opposites in a
No,
sense too.
but at the same time, if you think, oh my gosh, I feel so much, but I'm allowing myself to differentiate between all of those things. Like prior me to going to graduation, I literally went through an exercise from the Hawthorne book that talked about sitting down and feeling the individualized interpretation of fear and then, you know, unsafety and so, you know, whatever comes to mind. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
just said, like, take whatever comes to mind and sit there and allow yourself to fully experience a feel. This is similar to letting go, except that you're actually trying to feel.
Unwind all, because it feels like a bundle of a whole bunch of stuff, and you have to like pick it apart into.
Well, no, in this case, you know, they said, okay, sit there and just experience anger, right? Like sit there and go, okay, how does it feel to be angry? And they say, like, just feel it where it feels in your body, and just, you don't have to get lost in it, but observe. Like, is it spinning? Is it on the left? Is it on the right? Just be an observer of this feeling and how it sits in your body. And so just that exercise alone allows you to kind of start to differentiate between this wide range of emotional scale that, let's be honest, like in my 40 years, I have not really explored all that well. And so when I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, you know, let's go through a scenario where I felt angry, right? And they say either bring up a scenario or just simply just say, okay, anger, and, you know, whatever's easier for you. If you can imagine it, then imagine it. Or if you can go in the past where there was an anger, just go there, right? And just sit there and like actually see in the physicality, or honestly, it's pranically, but physicality is tied to prana, right? So your energy field or your energy body is tied to your physical body. Then how does it feel and sit inside your body? And so yesterday when I was sitting there, I feel the overwhelm, but because the overwhelm has all of these little sub emotions that I have never uncategorized within them, or maybe more accurately, accepted, right? Accepted that it's okay within one moment of your child graduating to feel sad and frustrated and maybe angry for some reason, you know, because of the whole, you know, I'm not going to mention those portions, but, and then afraid, and then possibly unsafety comes in, like, oh, and then like joy, and then happiness, and then I don't know what, love, and then despair in a sense, and
Yeah,
grief, because you're grieving this time in her life. Like, and this is just the brushstroke of me not being able to name things.
right. No,
So there's just the things I can name.
It's a lot.
But being able to feel the complete overwhelm, and I think importantly, to dissect all of these nuances is kind of like one of being human when you start to recognize that that is what humanity is. For the first time, maybe.
Yeah.
Here I am in my 40s, and I'm for the first time saying this, that being human is just feeling this wide breadth of what it means to be you, which is the emotional scale that you're able to, I would say, wield, but not in a sense of control, just experience through the pranic flow that is your energetic form and your physical form as a reflection thereof, or your
Yeah.
prana or your chi or your ka, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And there's however many emotions and feelings there are. I don't know. Let's just say 100. Who knows? Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. I don't know. But every event, you get this mixture of them all,
Mhm.
which, imagine you had even 100, colors of paint, right? That's a lot. But what you could do by mixing them together, the colors you could create by that,
Mhm. Yeah.
that's the human, the beauty of the human spectrum of emotions and feelings.
Mhm.
And then, you've got this mixture color and you're like, well, there's a little bit of red, and there's a little bit of green, there's a little bit of this fuchsia, and there's a little bit of, and realizing that what you feel right now is this combination of all these different things that are, really specific and really subtle. And, some of them are glaringly obvious. I'm angry, yeah, I'm angry. But, at the same time, I'm really proud. And, at the same time, I'm really sad. And, it is really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, interestingly, this is kind of a side note, but our aura, right, our energetic body quite literally glows those colors. So, like, our emotional field quite literally is expressed through our prana in the emotional states that we glow in. And like Annabelle sees the auric field around people, and that's literally what we are, right? And I would argue to say that if you stop allowing your prana to flow, you just basically kind of shut down this rainbow expression. And so when I say rainbow, like beyond human spectrum scale of color, visible spectrum, just, like whenever you see an energetic flow or an aura, right? Like it's just a combination of so many colors that you can't even describe. Like technically when you stare at the rainbow and let's say your teachings teach you that there's 7 colors, there are so many more nuances in between, right? Like when you take that color spectrum test, right? Oh my gosh, they're like just the nuance between the translation of one and the mixture of slightly the next.
Yeah.
That is what we don't allow ourselves to experience when we shut off our emotional flow because we're too afraid of what it will do for us when the vulnerability of us becomes obvious because it makes me feel unsafe. And I say that because that is how it makes me feel.
Right. That said, there is this peaceful beauty in opening it up and experiencing the full thing. It is
No,
like
it's the ultimate beauty.
and it's like, what was I afraid of? What did I think I was controlling or preventing from before this?
Well, I can tell you what.
No, I know, but on the other side, it's like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, but it does make sense to me if I look at myself as a scared child.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
Yes, from that standpoint, it makes sense.
Right?
But
the overwhelm of unsafety and vulnerability and hopelessness that you feel in feeling those emotions and not being able to do anything about it or actually even self-soothe, right? Like I was never taught self-soothing as a child. Like I think now when you go to a therapist in the United States and you're young, the therapist actually teaches you soothing. Like, oh, if you feel an emotional overwhelm, here's how you soothe yourself. And like if you're 5 or 6 and you go to a therapist, heck, you get something that most adults do not have. You get a technique to help yourself, one, feel, allow it to be felt, and then learn how to be okay with that emotion. Like, just feel that emotion. Like, the fact that there's therapists out there who teach this to children is amazing.
I mean, yes, absolutely. The being okay with that emotion was the one that was the hardest for me until something clicked. I don't know what, but something clicked in it, and that it's okay to be okay with it. I almost didn't give myself permission to be okay with it.
Relinquishing control, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, but
Well,
being okay with it is still not relinquishing control. Possibly is there a next step to it? Just being. Not being okay with it, but just being. There's no such thing as okay or not okay. Just being as you.
I say being okay with it as a
just opening the floodgates.
as a way to say, accepting it.
Yeah. So you maybe surrender. Yeah.
Yeah, but it took me forever to, even when I'm like, even when I knew that I should, to give myself like actual permission to do it. Even if I wanted to do it, I still couldn't actually do it.
Because it was scary.
Yeah, because it was scary. Because I'm like, part of me thought it wasn't the right thing to do. I didn't want to go there. What's going to happen? What's on the other side of this hill? I don't know. It's scary.
Well, yeah, it's scary. And, the positive psychosis portion of us has trained ourselves away from that space. We have designed and functioned for the last, in my case, 40 years, avoiding going there and designing all the tools in the world.
We're really good at not going there.
Well, no, in fact, we have designed probably thousands of tools in order not to go there. So the reason it was hard to go there is because for the last 40 years, we have spent training ourselves to ensure that we don't go there.
But one, and this is fairly recently, once I allowed myself to do it, it's like, it's great. It's like, do I want to be sad or angry? No. But there is this beauty and appreciation in it that makes it, saying makes it okay just isn't the right way to even word it. That exemplifies the completeness of the human emotional spectrum that was missing from my life before.
Like it exemplifies the completeness of experience.
Yes. It's like I wasn't actually living a full life before that.
Yeah.
Not that I necessarily am now, but it's fuller.
Well, at least it's freaking obvious when you're not.
Yeah.
Like it's right. Looking back, you're like, oh,
gosh, just thinking of all the times that I'm like, if I felt something or, started to feel something and I would just shove it down and, Yeah.
Yeah. So in the Tantra book, and I'm just in the beginnings of it. I love how I always bring my books up right in the beginning of it.
Yeah.
And I assume that this is where it's going to go, not even knowing where it's going to go. So I think most people read the book and maybe spend some time mulling it over and analyzing and then talk about the book. But in my case, I talk about the book in the beginning.
Or if it's a book club, every week we do another chapter.
Maybe. But no, in the book, I guess, and I don't know if this is the tantric teaching or the Osho, that talks about it. And he says basically, the tantric teachers is you're enslaved to the process of shutting things off, right? Like first you're enslaved to the emotions, right? So you're enslaved to the fear, right? Like you're feeling fear, you're trying not to feel fear, you're enslaved to fear in that case, right? But then the time when you spend trying to be or not to be something, then you're a slave to the process of either feeling fear or not feeling fear, or processing fear or not processing fear or whatever. And as you open yourself up to just being, you literally unenslave yourself to processes, that's how I'm interpreting, to processes of whatever, right? In my sense, I see okay, the processes of control, all the little things that I tried to do or tried not to do were there, in fact, for the nuance or the perception of control. But in fact, that is then your enslavement, right? And so the uncovering or letting go of everything that you hold, right? So Tantra, I think, is basically kind of just letting everything go. to the point where nothing is your goal. But not nothing is the goal. Being is the goal, and then therefore you become nothing, right? Like there's that clarity there. The goal is not have a goal. The goal is to not have a goal.
Nothing is the goal, but the goal is not nothing. Wait,
yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, right. Right. Trying to be something, trying to be nothing is still trying.
Yeah.
But just being is becoming nothing.
Right. It's subtle.
Yeah. Wait, but maybe I'll read this because then maybe we can go into this point of discussion. That would be a while. Hold on. I'd screenshotted it. So it's like a whole, maybe I should go into here instead of going through it one by one.
I mean, it's like in the, I think it's a Buddhist teaching, which sounds very similar to this. It's like, the goal, quote, quote, goal is to, be without desire, but you can't but the master level of that is if you desire to be without a desire, that's still a desire.
Yeah. Well, no. And in this book, he references Buddha and Buddhist teaching all the time. So I don't actually know as far as hold on, there's a line that like he basically takes these lines that are teaching and he like analyzes them. Okay. So this is the quote, and the entire chapter basically talks about dissection of this quote. The void needs no reliance. Mahamudra rest in naught. Without making an effort but remaining loose and natural, one can break the yoke, thus gaining liberation. Right. So the entire book basically, or this entire chapter just basically dissects that line by line, right? But the void needs no reliance. Mahamudra rest in naught, right? But without an effort, but remaining loose and natural, one can break the yoke. So in this case, like the reference to reaching nothing is without the effort, right? It's how this goes back to not feeling is an effort, or only feeling a specific thing is effort.
Mm-hmm.
Controlling what you feel, or even actively trying to let go, is still effort, right? So,
but feeling is I don't think there is effort in just feeling. You just sit there, and I think that is the natural state of the human.
The natural state
to
of
actually
being
just feel things.
Is feel. Yes.
So that is without effort.
Yeah.
Which might sound weird to someone who doesn't feel, but it takes effort to selectively carve off these bad feelings and push those down, or pretend that they don't exist, or whatever. That's where the effort is.
Well, yeah.
That's where the control is. The control is I don't want to feel X, Y, and Z, so I'm going to do whatever it takes. And there's any number of techniques to not feel those.
Yeah. I mean, to begin with, I would say before 2017, I have a very concrete set of things I do in order not to feel, period.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like before any form of awareness or even exploration of what it is, awareness. But after 2017, when the love and light comes into light, I am trying to reach something within me that feels this amazingness, like this never-ending, ecstasy and love, right? Because they give you the feeling to like, okay, here's what you can get, right? And then all the books basically say that they give you the feeling, and then you're like, wait, what the fuck was that? I don't feel that every day, right? And then you start.
So a seeker is born,
right? And then the seeker is born. And then I go on to whatever, right? The path of enlightenment, the path of love and light. But the love and light within it, right, still has the old ways of being where you're controlling. And in this case, everything that is not love and light, right? You almost become more militant towards yourself, which is really interesting. I think when I started this podcast, I was more militant towards myself than I was prior to 2017, right? Because I was driving I was trying to drive things out of myself through effort.
Is that the
Yeah. As opposed to now I'm realizing that is the effort that it took for me to recognize.
you don't need the effort?
No, that is the effort it took for me to recognize that the amount of control that I had set up needed to be offset, in my case, without much effort. Like, that is just the path that I took. Now, I'm not saying that is right.
I see what you
I'm
mean.
not saying
you had so much inertia behind the old way that you needed the commitment in order to offset that and undo that.
Yes, right. So I do believe that is a way to get to past self, right? So like when we started this podcast, my militant way to make sure that you and I don't know what, process the depth of ourselves was to offset the 40 years of inertia that I had to keep myself from not even going there. I'm not saying that's right. I think, the Buddhist path is not that. The Tao and the tantric path is not that.
In theory, one could sort of just let that go.
Yeah, I think, I don't know.
Maybe.
And I don't know if you gave that to me like 4 years ago or even like 2 years ago when we started this podcast, if you gave that to me, if that would have worked. Because the tenacity I had not to feel and not even to admit the fact that I'm controlling everything, right? Like I would have never admitted that I was controlling. Like I think 3 or 4 years ago when we started Tai Chi, there was a conversation about control. And I said, no, I don't think it's control. It's that I want better for other people, but even wanting better for other people is control. Do you see what I mean? When I want better for someone else, even for the sake of them, and then thus for the sake of my and their relationship being better, that's still control. Wanting better for someone else is still control. And I think 3 or 4 years, whenever we were having this conversation in Tai Chi, I would have not understood that was control.
I understand that that's desire. Is that control? I
mean,
I would
even
say,
the judgment of the fact.
I would say acting on it is control, but.
Oh, like understanding that me wanting better for them. Do you saying that's not control, but acting on it is control?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm making a distinction between desire and control that the more I think about it, I'm not sure that there is a distinction, but it feels like there might be. Like, I want a new car. Okay, there's a desire. And then the control is, well, I'm going to go scheme up a way to get it. I'm going to make money. I'm going to cash out investments. I'm going to go rob a bank. I'm going to go steal a car, whatever. There's any number of ways to get a car. And that is you're exercising. I'm trying to change something in the universe, whether that's I'm going to possess this object, or I want to not feel this way, or I want to do whatever. I'm trying to change something. To me, that's the control. And the desire is a mismatch between reality and what I want. I want the car. I don't have the car. So there's a desire.
Well, no, but I mean, I think
or even if there is a match, I am happy. I want to stay happy. Okay, now there's a match. Maybe there's a potential mismatch in the future that you're trying to that you would exert control to maintain a happiness or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think from the teachings of Tantra. Now, of course, I'm only in the beginning of the book, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But
share your expertise.
I'm going to share my expertise of my 12% that I'm into a Kindle.
Let me just sum this up for you. Here's how it all works.
Their goal or the tantric teaching is to surrender into the being, right? And if right now I'm feeling X, that is the surrender into that emotional range. And if I'm experiencing anger, that is the surrender of me. That is the experience of me being angry, right? So if I had to extrapolate, then if I have a desire for, I don't know, what's not poisonous these days that I can say? Dates. If I have desire for dates, right? Let's hope dates are not poisonous, right? Then there's the why, right? I think, if I have desire for dates because dates are better than sugar and I am actively against sugar, and so therefore I'm going to go for dates because there's all that, like that used to exist. But if there's this desire for flow or desire for expression, I would say that is the expression of me in its truest form, without attachment of any definition or attachments to outcome or attachments to it being there or it not being there, just an expression of self. I would say from the tantric practice way, that is flow, right? Right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can have a desire and that desire can have a flow from the space of being. And I can feel that being different than when I say a desire for somebody to be good, or for somebody to be better, or for somebody to be healthier. Do you know what I mean? The desire that I'm talking about 4 or 5 years ago when I wanted for them to do something was not that. And I say that because I can feel the pranic flow of where that desire came from. And it came out of lack. And it came out of this circumstances is not the way I wanted. And I want, and even though it's positive for them to be healthy, and even though it's positive for them to heal, it is still not coming out of expression of beingness.
Right.
I'm not allowing them to express themselves in the form of beingness, even if their form is leading them to death, because my preference for that form is something else.
Like, I want for somebody else to behave differently is its own special case here.
Yeah.
Of
But that's control.
That's
because
probably not, and yes, I want, I do want people to, you're basically saying, I want you to make better choices, better being the choices that I think are better.
Mm-hmm.
Are they better?
Yeah.
It's easy to say, yes, of course, eating less hamburgers and eating more, kale is a better choice. And, you can, turn on, put on your doctor hat and go, yes, well, there's the vitamins and this stuff is, and the hamburgers are terrible and the meat and the, and the factory farm. You can logic it out easily into the following things are what you should do and the following things are what you should not do.
Yeah.
And package that up. Here's my will. And I'm going to impose that on you and you should do this.
Yeah.
It's really easy to do.
Yeah. I think in this case, I was doing it. This was in regards to my parents. But in this case, I was doing it because I was feeling unsafe as a child, knowing that I, in the past, have interpreted them to be unsafe, and their current behavior also is leading to unsafety, to where one, they're just not there for me.
Yeah.
And so the idea of loss of my parents making choices that will cause them, one, they have never been there for me, right? Like as far as that thought process of unsafety goes, I'm not saying that is the truth. That is the perception that I had. And then that now them not being there for me, both from mental standpoint and then also physical standpoint of health, it was just reiteration of that.
Yeah.
But at the time, I did not understand that was a control because the child within me felt unsafe. I knew that they were my parents and I knew it was safe to revolve, but I didn't realize that any imposition of my will upon theirs is still not flow. In this case, one, I'm imposing my will and restricting their personal flow of prana by saying anything to them. But two, I was already not flowing myself.
Yeah.
Because I found that situation to be threatening. Right. And so if you remove that, but if you acknowledge, oh, I feel threatened. Right. And and I just feel it and it's okay.
Yeah.
I feel threatened and I feel unsafe.
And my go-to would be to try to control that by changing their behaviors.
Yeah. And so if I just go internally and I'll allow myself to feel, right, oh, I just feel utterly unsafe and I feel lost and hopeless, and that's okay. And the only thing that I can derive out of this experience is the fact that I have the human body and the energetic field, my pranic potential, to have this wide breadth, this wide range, the color spectrum of that emotional nuance. And that's it. That the only thing I can get out of anything is that I'm here to experience that very particular set, a very particular mingle of these very specific, personalized, nuanced emotions.
Right.
And allow that to flow naturally.
Yeah.
Just like right in Tantra, the teaching is naturally, the natural flow of you. And so if you recognize that for yourself, if you recognize that the only thing that I have, that I can be, is naturally open to me, and that is my experience here on earth, like why I'm here is just to do that, you can never able to say anything to anyone or even have an opinion about anything at all, about anyone else, because you quite literally don't know what their personal expression of self is, what their nuance is, what their personal rainbow of colors that they're designing to have as their truth.
Right. I mean, at the same time, I believe there is room there for, I don't know what the word is, advice, in the same way that, kids can go to therapists today and get, oh, here's some advice on how to do it.
The advice is always given,
Yeah.
but it should not be forced.
But that's the difference, is
right?
that it's not,
we can have this podcast and somebody can choose to listen to it.
Yes.
But in no way I should be infringing upon their free will or choice to take this, not to take this, to do anything with it. Like you and I can just be blabbering on, and we blabber on, now 80 episodes or 90 episodes worth.
Yeah. But
because that is a way for us to understand ourselves.
Yeah.
And somebody else can view this process and go, oh, look at those two fools, 90 episodes in, they're still doing that. And they don't have to take... Still here. They don't have to take anything out of that.
Yeah.
And that is beautiful, because they can see you and I in whatever color spectrum that we happen to be in based on their perception. And that is their own experience into this world.
And I'm going to use the word identity that we would have had in, assuming you had in, wanting, let's say, your parents to behave a certain way or do a certain thing, that falls away. That the control of there can be advice, there can be goodwill and whatever, but the attachment to person X taking this advice. Okay.
I think at some point the advice is there for control or hope for a different outcome, which
at some point it is, but I think at some point, ideally, it isn't.
Yes.
Oh, she wrote a book on it. So obviously there was some intention that he would share the advice.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think the book is a frequency transmission,
right,
to allow you to enter into a space.
He put it out there, and if somebody finds it and it's in resonance with them, great. And if not, he probably, I don't imagine he's losing any sleep over that.
Yeah. But because through free will and personal choice, you will take the same material as, like as I'm praising these books right now, and the combination of the two, and somebody else could take it and they'll be like, what the fuck is this? This is just like, this is nonsense, right? Might as well be a manual to...
Me 10 years ago, that probably would have been nonsense. So it's, it's the right person at the right time, in the right place, in the right state of mind, finding the right material.
Yeah. No, in my case, what I love about this is when I am open to truth and to commitment, right? Even the commitment is effort to just being, right? To being. And I ask for the universe for help. The universe literally brings me two books, one book to begin with, and that second book basically brought me the other book that, in the previous podcast and the previous podcast and previous podcast, I've been struggling with this so much, just unraveling the personal hold that I have and not allowing myself to feel, that the books basically just gave me this frequency of, what you were talking about, that here's how you feel, maybe the lesson, and it's okay to feel, and feeling is the path, as opposed to, right? Like, remember how I said in the previous couple of podcasts that I'm finally becoming okay with feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah.
That right there, it took me forever just to get to that point. Just to recognize it is okay to feel completely overwhelmed by the onslaught of emotions that I have, right? Because it feels like they're slaughtering me. I know do you know what I mean? Like, that's what it is. I mean, I think the expression is something else, but right, like, it just feels, remember when I said it feels like I'm drowning and I'm drowning and drowning, because I have never felt that much of emotional range.
Yeah.
And it was the first time probably in my life, not counting the childhood, obviously in childhood, I felt that much overwhelmed, but the first time in my adulthood that I allowed myself to feel it and surrendered or attempted to surrender into it, right? Like that constant drowning, I was keeping myself from actually feeling that. And honestly, I was probably feeling that all, let's say 30 years, for sure. I was probably constantly drowning for 30 years, and I did not allow myself to feel it.
Now you're aware of it, and that's why it's overwhelming.
And now I'm aware of the constant drowning. And for the first time, I'm like, shit, this is like a complete overwhelm. I'm just always drowning. And it took me 2 or 3 months to feel that, to actualize, to understand that is what I feel. Like, how silly is that? And it took me 2 months to understand that I feel like I'm drowning all the time, right? Hence my root canal and all that. And then now I'm like, it is okay to always feel like you're drowning. And it took me another, 2 weeks to feel that. Or just I'm not saying I am actually there at the end or any form of it, but just allowing myself to be there. I say, I laugh at it because it's funny, in that uncomfortable way. Because it's okay. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I know you said that, and I'm saying that in the previous podcast, I've said that. But these books literally gave me the answer only after I have figured the shit out. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Only after I figured the damn thing out on my own through enormous amount of struggle, the books come and go, here's what you just experienced for the last 2 months.
Yeah. And who knows, if you'd read those books a year ago, it might or might not have clicked. I don't know.
But think about how the universe has always done this to me. They gave me the book only after I have went through the most visceral, uncomfortable experience of it, to where I only understand it in reverse. And my book starts out by saying, the book that I channeled starts out by saying that you only understand things in reverse after you had a chance to experience them at its full breadth of extension, right? I viscerally experienced being completely lost and buried and drowning and overwhelmed and unsafe for the last 2 or 3 months. And only on the other end of it, maybe when it got to be too much, or maybe when I finally felt the amount that I wanted to feel in this life or in this moment, then now I'm like, oh, fuck, that was a lot. And now I'm okay with a lot. Like, I'm finally okay with a lot. Do you know what I mean? The difference is that it's not that I'm not feeling it anymore. I'm finally okay with the feeling.
Yeah. It's just so beautiful to finally be okay with these things that have taken so much effort to shut off in my life. And it's like, oh my gosh, that was a lot of effort and energy and time and focus and everything just to try not to feel try not to be in what is a natural human state. To try to be at least partially robotic. I don't feel anger. Yes, you do. You're just pretending that you don't, and you're just burying it down. And guess what? It's going to bubble up someday.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard a lot of people who are on that love and light say, and I know we've brought on prayer podcasts, is that, I don't go into fear or I don't go into anger.
Right.
Right.
I think that's a huge disservice to humanity. It's like it
has nothing to do with humanity. It's just you being you, having your experience.
But if you're having that and you're spreading that, I mean, at the same time, I think it's possibly a necessary state.
No, it's a step. It's just a step.
Yeah,
that
necessary
you're on.
step.
I mean,
I went through it. I mean, I wish we could skip it.
No, I don't know. I mean,
it would be nice to not have to have one less step on the way up, but I went through it, and it's this weird combination of, like, on one hand it feels good, on the other hand there's this weird nauseating incompleteness to it.
Because in the back of your head, you know.
That's it. It feels like you're lying to yourself.
Like in the Lord of the Rings, right? Like Tolkien obviously is next level, and he channeled all of this from other realms, and he just took it and put it into fictional form. But the show is, maybe, I don't know if it's actually based on Tolkien's writing, or it's just kind of like we took an idea and we kind of wrote an offshoot of it. I don't know. But in the show, like he said, deep down I knew he was bad.
Yeah.
And yet
he offered me everything I wanted. But
I was powerless, but I chose to take that on as a path, because like the mastery of self in that case would be not to surrender to darkness, right? And to find self and see self being vulnerable or being seduced by the darkness.
Yeah.
Right. And in this case, when you feel the light, right? If you are the light and you feel the light, and all of us are light, like 100% of us are light, but you choose to allow the darkness within you to exist, which is denial of your fear and denial of your unsafety and denial of your anger, right? That is the darkness, is the denial that is you, that is part, not you as an identity of you, but that is you on the full emotional scale of your experiential being, right?
Yes.
That is the darkness.
It feels, yes, that's my problem with it. It feels like it's this darkness masquerading as light.
Well, it's you.
Is it better than what is before? Maybe it's at least directionally accurate.
Well,
maybe.
You and I were there. You and I were there. We felt the light, and we were drawn to the light.
That's what I mean. It's better than where I was before that. But there was this something gnawing in me where this is not right. This is not the right place to be. Certainly not the right place to end up.
But I didn't realize that
it was I didn't realize it was a step on the way.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is where everyone is. So, but I'm like, it feels good in a way, but it feels sick in a way.
But how beautiful is this? I mean, this is, Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's teachings.
Yeah.
But that is quite literally how the darkness corrupts the light, right? Yeah. I think about, the problem that I have, and the problem I have, but, not from tantric standpoint, but, right, why I get so animated and so viscerally pumped up is I find it beautiful in a way, from the diabolical standpoint, is everybody's teaching gets corrupted by this. How many people you and I have saw that started on a path of love and light, and their teaching is amazing, like just transformational, maybe just like the next level, right? And I'm not going to name any names here, but you know who I'm talking about. Like dozens of people that I can name right now that are part of that. But because they're not integrating their entire being from the Lord of the Rings Sauron standpoint, the darkness of not allowing yourself to integrate, right? Or of this denial or fulfillment of your truth comes in, and it actually corrupts your light. The only way the light can be corrupted is if you allow your own personal darkness to take over its form.
Yeah.
The Sauron doesn't do anything, then it allows your personal darkness of self to corrupt your own being,
Right.
and then thus propagate this corruption
That's the thing.
onto the rest of the world.
He doesn't take over the world. He lets the world take over itself.
He lets your own darkness, your
Yeah,
own
he lets the individuals take themselves over.
Yes.
Surrender themselves to him. He's not
through the personal darkness. And the entire Tolkien teaching is that,
Yeah.
right? When Frodo, when Bilbo Baggins gives Frodo the ring, is because the ring chooses Frodo because it sees the amount of light that Frodo has, and it sees that Frodo possibly has the tenacity, this is that, to see past the darkness within and to be able to face his own darkness and to make a decision into integration. Not to deny it, but to see, oh my gosh, look, when Frodo stands at the end and he wants the ring because the power of the ring is overtaking him, and then Sam helps him say, Frodo, you're not this, you're not your darkness, right? I'm getting emotional by it. Right, by a habit here, right? And then he chooses to allow his darkness that is represented in this ring, and he lets it melt, right? He releases the power that he held over himself through the control, because that was what's keeping him safe.
Yeah.
That is quite literally me. Like, it is quite literally you. That is quite literally the journey. What's his name?
Joseph Campbell.
Joseph Campbell's journey.
Yeah.
You see the darkness that you have used to allow yourself to survive thus far, right? To deny yourself truth. And the truth of it is simply the fact that you are not your anger. You are not your fear. You are not your lack. You're not your grief. But you're denying yourself the experience thereof. Therefore, you're denying yourself the self. That is the whole being.
The whole self, yeah.
But as long as you spend denying self, that is the darkness.
Yeah. Yeah. The darkness isn't the anger and the fear. It's the denying of the anger and the fear.
Right.
Which
So
is
when Celebrimbor
not obvious.
makes the ring, what he's not seeing is there's this darkness within him of the ego to control his image, to control the life, to control the darkness that is within him. And he's taken that darkness and he's propagating it onto the world as an idea, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. The reason why Sauron was able to
The
corrupt
rings are a
him,
manifestation of that.
Yes, of that. Right. The reason
Yes.
Sauron is able to take over him in the Lord of the Rings Amazon series, right? Or the Frodo, the reason why the ring is able to take over him is because he's not integrating all the portions of himself. That is the fear, that is the cruelty, that is the sadness, that is the overwhelm, that is, right? Because all of those things only exist because we're not allowing self to integrate into experience that is the human potential. And we are becoming enslaved to it, right? The Sauron enslaves you through this darkness. In tantric teachings, you are enslaved to your emotions because you're not even aware that you're having these emotions, in my case.
Yeah.
Or two, you're not even aware that there's such thing as just letting your emotions be as your experience, as opposed to identifying yourself as those emotions.
Yeah.
And then the next step is just going, this is the human experience. It's just to let the prana of this emotions flow, as opposed to feeling overwhelmed or denying or controlling or doing anything about it.
Right.
Which I say this right now in this podcast, is this hour, an hour and a half, but that is like a lifetime of path.
Yeah.
Like it's a lifetime of path to get the freaking understanding. And I'm still struggling. Like I am still just in the beginning stages of just like, fuck. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like the reason why we're watching the show right now is because quite literally that is what the experience of the corruption of self, a corruption of the light by self.
Right. It beyond the self in maybe this is off topic. This might be off topic.
You can say it and let me see if it's off topic.
The same thing that happens, the exact same thing that happens there to the individual also happens to the organization of,
teaching. The teaching of light.
The teachings of Jesus or whoever that started off as a nice, pure, beautiful message, it becomes who was it that said that? Was it
Paul Wallace?
Paul Wallace.
So. Yeah, everybody says that.
There's the prophet, and then the prophet dies, and then the organization takes the place ostensibly to spread the good word, but then, it becomes bureaucratic and politicized, and there's some sort of leader at the top, and it gets corrupted into just, funneling more money and or power and or status and or whatever into the organization and into the hierarchy. And eventually there becomes a new prophet. But that it feels like the organizational version of the same thing that happens to the individual.
Yeah. Yeah, but the organization is a reflection of the collective that manages it.
Yes.
And the collective is
individuals
drowning in darkness.
Right.
They are controlled by the Sauron
and
energy.
It's super easy to if we had more money, then we could do more good. If we had more power, then we could save more. It's really easy to justify. Oh, well, if I didn't feel these negative emotions, then I would be able to, I would be able to make more money so I could donate more to charity. Sure. It's super easy to logic way and justify all this stuff in some sort of higher good. But really, I don't want to feel this. So, because I'm afraid of it, because it hurts, because I'm not used to it, because I've trained myself not to, because I don't know how to, because whatever.
I don't even know what the fuck is happening. I mean, to me, there was a time that I'm just on the autopilot of not feeling and controlling. Like until 2017. How old am I at that point? That was it. I mean, at some point the gates shut off, the prana stopped flowing, and then now it's mitigation, and it was mitigation for 30 years. That's it. That's the only thing I knew was mitigation for 30 years.
Right, but
nothing can come out of that.
But once you do allow yourself to feel truly, then the whole being on the other side of that, the whole you on the other side of that is then able to, is then free to actually, if you're trying to logic it away as, well, I'm gonna not feel in order to through some dotted line, do something good out of it, right? The whole you is in a much better position to actually enact some sort of change. If that's, on the other hand, the whole you may not feel the need to do that after all.
If everybody was there would be no need to change anything at all, because it will just be the reflective nature of perfection that is our soul. That is the love and light that everybody's chasing, but it basically corrupts it through their own darkness. That's the sad part. Like I say, there's an emotional sadness there, right?
Yeah, there's this. I wish it's like, what's that scene in Billy? Is it Billy Madison or Happy Gilmore, where he goes into the school and the kid's like, I want to be grown up too, and Adam Sandler grabs him by the cheek, little chubby kid grabs him by the cheeks, and he's like, take that back. Never say that. Stay here as long as you can. And that's this how I feel sometimes. It's like, no, just, which is obvious, which is exactly what we've been talking about the whole time. That's the control. It's like, no, here's the right thing to do. And it's right because I say it's right and I've decided it's right. Follow the right path. Come on. Right.
Well, no, because you're trying to save them.
I'm trying to save them because I know better. Because here's the right thing. Because clearly you're suffering. Because ... Sure, it all makes logical sense. It's easy to justify.
No, but like,
and it's like everyone wins. This is a better world if you just listen to me. It's super easy to justify.
Right. It's been a long time since I've been in the place where I'm able to toggle and understand both sides because I've been drowning on the one side for so long now. But think about how beautiful. What?
Just the way the kids, and they put in sound effects of like this, like.
Think about how beautiful the path is of someone choosing to remain, to swim in darkness, while pursuing light, or to swim in darkness while being blind to the light, right? Like everything is just a personalized nuance of expression of what do we do not to feel the light, pretending like we don't know it, and then being lost in that spectrum of idea, right? Because
no, I mean,
everything is just that. Going forward, I think what I'm recognizing at this point is everything will be me going through some version of pretend where I think I'm not light. And then thus exercising all of these nuances by pretending to believe it.
Yeah. No, it is beautiful in its own weird way. Because it is like, for me, I think it was a necessary step. There's no conceivable way that me today could go back 10, 20, 25, 30 years and go, hey, young Elliot, let me tell you what's up. And young Elliot would listen to a word I said, right? I have a magic phrase that if I ever were to have a time machine, only I know it. And I've never told a soul. I've never told you. That if I were to go back in time, I could tell myself this. So if someone were to come up to me and say this, I know to 100% believe anything they say. And even if I did that, I'd be like, yeah, but, right? I don't think I would have been able to convince my younger self even a couple years ago.
I don't think I will be able to convince myself tomorrow into this. Like right now, speaking about this and being in this vibrational frequency, tomorrow I will be back in the lost world of self where I still believe that my emotional state of being is somehow a representation of me.
No, I mean, you fall back into it, but then you go, wait a minute, here I go again. But the growth, the journey of the growth is the beautiful thing. And it is very much a hero's journey type thing. But, surprise, the dragon is yourself. Spoiler alert, you're the dragon that you're fighting yourself.
You're Sauron. You're your own Sauron.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like think about what Sauron represents in Tolkien. And to say to somebody that you're Sauron, like that would be like, my gosh, well, fuck no, right? Obviously, like if you just believe in the chronology and you believe like there's light and the elves are fighting against the darkness and the hobbits are fighting against the darkness and the man is fighting against the darkness, everyone's fighting with the darkness, but you are the darkness.
Yeah.
Like there's no darkness other than you.
Right. Stop fighting yourself. Stop fighting yourself. Right.
No, I say that knowing that I have spent lifetimes viscerally fighting myself.
Yeah.
And the most beautiful thing that I still have a problem with is how many amazing messages of light that come out of each human being, and they flow, and there's just rainbow of blossom all around each one of these messages, each one of these souls. And then they get corrupted by the darkness of that soul.
Yeah.
And like, it is diabolical how many reiteration of this cycle we go through. Excuse me. And, Jesus and Buddha, I can possibly say that those are the beings that have reached the point of this awareness and then later went on to live the life of uncorrupted darkness, right? To where they were functioning vibrationally in that natural state of tantric being where you are and your is everything and the full spectrum of human expression, but they did not let that human expression be the identity of their being. Right? And maybe I'm assuming just, I never knew Mother Teresa, but like just from the stories or the frequency that I can pick up, I think she was there too, right?
Right. I
She
mean,
was
there's
just there.
who is someone said that there's always at least, was it 32 or 36?
I thought it was 49.
Just it's a a handful. There's always some number of people incarnated on Earth to
Hold that frequency.
to hold that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know what that frequency is. And it's right to reach the point of self where you're integrated that much, I mean, if the word tantra or whatever that word is, or bliss or euphoria, it is quite literally just that. Like you're just, in fact, right? Like I remember speaking. I remember when I was reading Course of Miracles, and then I was having my dream circle, right? And the Course of Miracles obviously has this frequency within it, and I remember I went to the dream circle in person, and I was talking about just that and just this euphoric love that is the isness, right? And of course, one of the people on the dream circle is Jewish, very Jewish, and this is where inevitably the Goodwin law comes in, and you can say, how can everything be beautiful? I was going there. Right, including Holocaust, right? And
Right.
that was just like, that's the number one thing that comes in.
Yeah.
That you just can't. People cannot even, right? I can't even.
Yeah.
And and the dream that I had in Galapagos, where it was not a dream, I was awake, and then all of a sudden I went on this vision quest to where I was aware that I'm laying in bed, and I was aware of my positioning. I was facing the window and the whatever island in Galapagos we were in. Yeah, and there you go. And then when we first got to Ecuador, before we even got to Galapagos, the message that I got is it was the balancing point of all,
Right.
including the
is,
light and the dark.
And it is on the equator.
Right. And so for some reason, metaphorically, or maybe euphorically, I don't know, it is designed as a balancing point. And so when we got to Ecuador, I realized, it is quite literally going to balance the light and the dark within me. And I did not know what that meant. Right. And this was already after I was in some sort of fugue state of overwhelm prior to even getting there. Right. And so I'm there, and I'm realizing that the system, energetic system of the equator is doing something. And so I go on this vision quest, and in this vision quest, I'm visiting the Auschwitz concentration camps. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? I remember thinking, like, why am I here? And in my vision, I realized, I go here all the time. I go to this place to pay tribute to the energetic frequency that much pain can hold, and then a kinness that the humanity has within the unintegration of that pain and darkness that we're experiencing in this form, right? And so I'm still not 100% sure on how to formulate this, but the healing that hundreds of people are doing by coming back there year after year on some kind of time. I don't know what anniversary it is. I don't know what, but hundreds of beings come back there energetically to provide healing to that space that reverberates out through time and space, both in the back and in the forward, to heal this cumulative energy within humanity that registers like in this moment. It registers frame by frame. I don't know what that means, but that is the healing of the darkness that propagates out of that space that I think, this is kind of weird, open the portal to overwhelming amount of self-identity with pain, with fear, with unsafety that got initiated during that time.
There are places on Earth. We've been to like some like battlefields and stuff, and it's like, oh, this is a place where a lot of people died. And, you know, there's a lot of tragedy and sorrow and anger and hatred. And, you know, we were at on the Culloden battlefield in Scotland.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you know, on one hand, it's beautiful. It's, you know, it's Scotland. Everything's beautiful in Scotland. Nature-wise, you know, the grass and the tree, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But at the same time, kind of yucky. Because it's like, I don't know the numbers, but thousands of people died.
Yeah.
Needlessly, just like in every war, needlessly.
Yeah. But this is really interesting.
And Auschwitz, you know, was just
multiplied.
However many times more than that.
Yeah. But it's probably
however many.
But like a battle,
more needlessly.
you know, like a battle is a battle, let's say, of a couple of days. Auschwitz was
years of just a death factory. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Energetically, it opened up itself to unprocessed amount of vastness that Earth, I don't know if needed or not, but ended up going through and experiencing, and is basically healing itself from right now. Like that arc, you know, remember I told you that they show me there's these arcs, and I don't know how many years we are from Auschwitz right now, but we're on an arc where we're able to heal
probably 80
this mass wound that has been festering and bleeding and is basically not allowing us to move from whatever. And Auschwitz is just being a very large representation of that.
Some sort of nexus, epicenter of.
Yeah.
Of
and I cannot tell you if Earth needed to experience that and therefore it was so, or for all I know, that was it. You know, so I will not put judgment on it to say that was required or not required. I mean, but what I'm saying is we're still healing the epicenter of that right now. You know, but I remember back when I was in LA and they told me that I will be healing Nazi Germany energy. This was, when was that? New Year? Oh, there you go. There you go. Right. It started. Oh, okay. Yeah. My fugue state started then.
Oh yeah.
That's what it was. When they took me.
It was a little bit before New Year. Yeah. A couple of days before.
Right before the fire started.
End of 2024.
Yeah. Because we came there. And then I went through this thing. There was a huge energetic input. And then they took me into this weird plane. And then the fire started right then. And so then the LA was burning for however long it was burning after that. We went to Vegas. Then there was the whole explosion in Vegas. And then we went to, where we went to Sedona and Scottsdale. And shit continued to happen. I don't remember if anything happened in Sedona and Scottsdale.
Crazy time. Crazy times follow us wherever we go.
Yeah. Change is initiated with a huge influx of emotional upbringing, right? And physical form, right, is what we allow ourselves to enter into the emotional influx, right? So like our physicality, our physical expression causes the influx, right? And so when I went on this vision quest in Galapagos, when I was laying there, and I was healing this Auschwitz Nazi Germany energy. I was actually not even related to the Nazi. I was healing the wounded space. How did I even get on this topic? Why did I even go there? Something with darkness within, right? Like we're holding on to it. And this is that's not why I was on this topic, but I was going to say this. Think about how many people that we know, that light workers that we don't know or like heard of on Gaia, that go to these places of Culloden, for example, and do energy healing unbeknownst to anyone else. Like when we went there, I was healing the Culloden land, right?
Mhm.
Like that's not something that most people talk about. And think about how many other people, like Tom Kenyon, when we had his interview, him and his wife travel the world and they do healing, energetic healing.
I mean, whether it's places of great sorrow like Culloden, or whether it's places of great, energy focus like Stonehenge, or
Well, it's either
Mount
light
Shasta
workers are
or
going
whatever.
to activate the energy of light, but as they're activating the energy of light, they're also going to the places that need more light, and they're bringing light
Right.
to those places.
Right. There's like energetic focal points,
Mm-hmm.
and there's maybe like places that need healing the most.
Yeah, but as a light worker, right? Whenever you're in that state, the tantric state of being, I say tantric or euphoric or blissful or Christ consciousness would be that state too. Whenever you're in that Christ consciousness state of being, you are the bearer of light, right? Those 49 people that are always incarnated on earth in order to hold that frequency act as a support beacons, right? To help the rest of humanity have this tether into something that helps them integrate their darkness, right? You have to have that. Like in the elfin story, like their tree was a representation of that.
Yeah.
And when the tree of the dwarf tree was dying, right? It's representation of that, right? The connection to self, where the darkness of your own being takes over you. I know we're kind of like arcing into a whole other topic here, but I think that's the healing of self basically takes you there. Like in the Osho book, he talks about basically within that natural state of being, you become the nothing and the emptiness that is everything. And then therefore the natural state of being is tantra, is euphoria, but you don't chase it, you don't get it, right? When you break the yoke, you're not breaking the yoke. The yoke breaks by the beingness of the natural state that is the integration of you.
Yeah, right. It's I don't know, saying it's not so much of an active thing as it is a state of being.
Having recognized we have been actively trying to get somewhere. But I don't think I would have been in this space and this understanding without the active. So I cannot discount the active and the need for thereof in order to get to the place of understanding where the active is no longer necessary. Do you know what I mean? It's right. Like when I'm in that place of overwhelm, to say that is, like overwhelmed. Therefore, the natural space of being is control to help yourself not feel overwhelmed, because control in the past has helped you with the overwhelm. You saying that to Tanya in that space wouldn't work, right? Like tomorrow probably won't work. Maybe something will happen tomorrow, so just maybe smack me in my face in order to get me out of that state, right? But in general, right? Surrendering to the isness then allows you to feel. I don't know. Do you remember?
Allows you to feel. Allows you to feel.
To feel, yeah, to feel. And this reminds me, like in Lord of the Rings, Do you? Maybe it's Galantri. Galantri, is that what her name is?
Galadriel.
The one that is
Galadriel.
played by the Lord of the Rings, not the Rings of Power that we're watching. And do you know when she does some sort of healing and that magical ray comes in?
Oh yeah, I think so.
And it's like it looks like Bifrost,
Sure.
right?
Sort of elf magic.
The elf magic, right? The elf magic has this thing, but they did an amazing job portraying it because the Bifrost is also portrayed that way. But that is how the light, the Christ consciousness or the euphoric or the bliss or the tantric light, that is the essence of all is. That is how it looks. I don't know why it looks that way. And
that reminds me of the when there's like some sort of like cloud thing and the sun's maybe low and then the light rays are coming out from the clouds. There's a name for that. The nine-legged creature or something. There's some ancient peoples had a name for that effect, but it reminds me of that. But it's usually portrayed in the movies as like straight down on you.
Yeah, right. Or like the Jesus light, like when the angels sing, and you go ah, right, and there's the ah, and it's that, right. But it does, for some reason, has this. It's a presence of every single light possible within this ray.
There's a whole bunch of way off topic. A whole bunch of paintings from way back in the day that portray the light of the Lord or the light of Christ, like shining into people. I think it usually hits them either in the stigmata locations or sometimes in their forehead, and it's portrayed as like just a beam, almost like a laser beam, coming in from heaven or maybe from a dove, and it just bzzz, right in their head or right in their sometimes their hands and the feet and their little side that Jesus gets stuck on. There's a lot of paintings like that.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Our human, right? It's light and it's overabundant light. So how would you describe it? Oh my gosh, it's just the most blinding, brightest light you can possibly imagine. But it has every spectrum of color within it. But as a painter, when you go to interpret it, what can you possibly do? Okay, well, just the most glowing thing possible, right? And that's it. That's the best we could do.
Yeah.
Because you can't even, right? Like when the pigeon glows, or when our cat, we have a black cat, and when the sun hits her and she has that, her black hairs glow, that iridescent light, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so once in a while I see it. Or you see it on the pigeon once in a while. But that's it, right? But it's just there. Like the earth is permeated by that.
Yeah.
And the only thing that causes us not to see it, feel it, and interpret it, to be in the state of that tantric being, is our own darkness, the Sauron that exists within us.
We're covering it up.
We're just not letting the prana flow. And not letting the prana flow is the imposed segregation of self, separation of self from that light. I mean, it's diabolical. It's diabolical how many things have already said this, taught this, knew this, but none of it can be interpreted until you experience it for yourself. In the most visceral, painful, what seems like damning way. But it's interesting, damning. It's damning, but it's also damning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to damn yourself off. You have to damn yourself in order to experience the most abundant version of being.
It's a good place to end.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.